All right, guys, welcome back to Heidi's Lane podcast. I'm actually really excited today about my guest. I always say this, but if you're watching, you can see that there's a resemblance between he and I.
Yeah.
Denver, I think we look the most alike of all the siblings.
For sure. I'm just a little grayer.
He's a little grayer, a little better looking, a little more muscular.
I'm kidding. No. I'm fluffy.
And younger looking because you have a med spa.
I am gray though, so I don't know if I look younger.
But here's the thing. You had blonde hair always. So like to me, I look at your hair and it looks blonde.
That's why I try and tell Taylor. I'm like, it's blonde, babe. It's not gray. She's like, no, it's gray.
No.
And she's saying, it's even thinning. I'm like, what are you doing?
No, turn around. No, it's not. You should see. If I took this hat off right now, you would see thinning. I got my extensions out, Denver. I have no hair.
Looks good.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
I mean, there's less on my right side than on my left. So I just usually, that's why I put the camera on my left side.
That's me back here. I have less back here. Taylor told me.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, she really did. Denver, I'm telling you right now, you cannot freak out about that. Here's the thing, guys. So let me just say this. This is my baby brother, Denver. I came from a family of 4 kids. It went older brother, me, middle brother, Denver. Denver is 7 years younger than me. And I remember Denver, like, I'm not kidding you. My memories of you, like, here's what's weird. Let me just say this. I have memories up until high school. And then it's like I blanked out until after my divorce with Derek. Yeah. I'm not kidding. I have like a period of my 10 years where I don't remember anything. And then I can remember again. But what I remember when you were a baby, so I was 8. I would dress you up in my little doll nightgowns. Oh, it was the cutest thing ever. And then like, I remember we would walk into, I don't know, whatever grocery store mom used to take us to, Albertsons. And you would hold on to my pinky. And it was my favorite thing. So I was like probably Ruby's age, 10. You were like 2 or 3. And you loved me.
I still remember all the makeup and the dresses. And I used to steal mom's makeup at one point and lock her out of the house.
You used to steal mom's makeup. A man not afraid to wear women's makeup. Yeah.
Confident.
Oh, so you guys can see he's a very, very handsome guy. But what's even better about Denver is he's even more handsome on the inside.
Oh,
no, I'm serious. And okay, so today, everyone listening to this is listening. Well, I guess you might not be listening on Father's Day, but this podcast is being released on Father's Day. Last week, I had a fun little podcast of Cash and Ruby and Maddox and Marley doing a tribute to, it was really cute. They did a tribute to Derek and Chris, their dads, for Father's Day. And then today, it was actually at the very end, Ruby's like, Mom, you had a really great father too. And I was like, oh, you're right. I need to do another podcast about my dad. And so I figured no better person to have on than my brother, Denver, who...
the one that was the most spoiled, for sure.
You were the most spoiled by Dad. What do you remember about Dad?
I remember a lot. Everything. Probably the coolest things was the example he left, like always going to the gym, always bragging about how much protein he ate at 9:30 in the morning, and how many Diet Cokes he'd knock down by lunch, benching 400 on his 40th birthday.
Oh, I remember that.
He thought it was so cool. Everything we do at the med spa now was really inspired by him, but he thought it was so cool to have a doctor that would come to the house and give us B12 shots and do an IV. And at the time, PRP was like not even close to being mainstream, and he was doing it, and he was just so proud of that stuff.
It's true. Okay, so you're right. Like one of the biggest things I remember about Dad too. So let me say this before I go into anything. Let me give you guys some backstory. My dad and mom started having kids very young. I think my dad was 18 when Gima was born, right? Yep. Wasn't Dad was 18 when Gima was born?
18 and 17.
Yes, yep. And like 2021 when I was born. And I mean, it just kind of goes, you were 7 years late. Darren was somewhere in there. He must have been 28, 29 when you were born. His baby. He was 28, 29 when his fourth child was born. And so in a lot of ways, they were babies raising babies. And it's so crazy to think about how well mom and dad did. Like so dad is no longer here. He was definitely larger than life. I don't think there is a soul in this part of town that doesn't know dad, number one, and does not think so freaking highly of who dad was, number two, because he truly had probably one of the most generous hearts I've ever seen. Like, I remember there were people, because you might have been too young, but I remember he would have this massage therapist come over, and for him, a mom, to massage them. And he would sit, like, she needed to borrow money. He befriended everybody. And when people wanted to borrow money, because he had money, he made money. It's not that he had it. He worked his butt off and he earned a great living, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people saw it and they would say, oh, he's the guy to go to when you need money. And so people would come to him for money, and he would always say, like, he would lend people money, but he would tell all of us kids, he would say, never lend people money you expect to get back. Like, when you're lending money, you're actually giving it to them. Now, don't tell them that, but he would lend the money under one condition. Like, then the condition was he would sit down with that person every single week and help them with their finances.
I remember that.
And so there was a massage therapist that she would do the massages. And then after the massage, dad and mom would sit down and do her finances with her.
I remember coming home to that.
How cool is that?
I know.
Like, it just says the kind of guy he is. Like, it wasn't like, he wasn't about just giving a man a fish. He would give him a fish, but he also would say, I'll give you this as long as you let me teach you how to fish.
Yeah, he always said, teach a man how to fish.
Yep.
And keep an honest man honest.
Yes.
He always said that too.
But dad, so my dad, it had some, just like every human, we all have struggles in life, and he overcame them in like the most beautiful way. And he did end up passing away when he was 49. So was that 13 years ago now? Yeah, because it was 2011.
Yeah. 13 or I'm awful at math. 13, 11 years. Yeah.
So 13 years ago, my dad passed away. And I hope you don't mind. I'm going to go into that story. And I'm going to tell the story. Mom's okay with it. I've talked to mom about it. My dad did struggle with addiction, like a lot of people do. And I think and I struggled with addiction too. Mine was food addiction and different things. But for a small period of my dad's life, and it all started from a shoulder injury. I mean, Phil, I'm sure a lot of people listening here have been in a similar situation or have a spouse who has. And that led to something that at one point he decided to go get help for it, which was really awesome that he decided to go get help. And after that was 3 years before he died, and he got help, and who he came out of that was truly the most incredible person I've ever. He was already the most incredible, but he came out of it even more incredible, mending relationships that maybe he thought he had burned, and really trying and taking care of his body even better than ever, and making sure mom knew she was the queen that she was. And during that time, you decided to go on a mission.
Yes.
For the church that we were raised in. And you went on a 2-year mission. Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he made it pretty simple. I remember I wanted to be a dermatologist, and he said, well, if you want, I kind of made a comment to him like, well, it's 12 years of school or whatever it is. It's going to be like $1 million. I'm going to need help. He's like, well, if you want help, you can go on a mission or you can go in the military, one or the other.
Yeah. And
so I remember going back and forth, and at this point I was not going on a mission. I had told everyone I'm not, and I was living in Newport with them. And I remember looking at like trying to get on with the Navy and the Air Force. I wanted to fly the helicopters for the Coast Guard at one point. And
I didn't know any of this. This is awesome.
And I remember telling dad, I'm like, hey, you know what? This is a lot easier. I can just go to Long Beach. It's $55,000 for my helicopter's license, and I can be a helicopter pilot. He goes, that's the dumbest thing you've said. No, you're going to give up on that in 3 months. He was right. I probably would have. But we ended up saying, hey, going to go into the military. That was like a couple weeks. And then one day my dad and I were talking about how he was battling to stay clean. I'm like, well, I'll go on a mission if you stay clean. And that was kind of our thing.
So you and Dad had it. This is all new to me.
Yeah.
If you stay clean, I'll go on a mission.
And that was pretty much why I didn't come home, because he died 4 months before. So to kind of fill in. So Denver left on a mission, which is a 2-year mission for the church. About a year in, my dad and mom went and visited Denver. Where'd you go again? Brazil. Yeah.
He went to Brazil. They went and visited. It's against the rules. Against the rules to go visit your missionary. But my dad,
he insisted.
My dad's a rule breaker. That's actually one of my notes. My dad was the kind of guy that was like, rules are made to be broken, and I'm very similar. So I feel okay saying that. But so Dad went to go visit you in Brazil in, I don't know, was it like October?
Oof.
It wasn't long before.
Yeah, it was like October.
So October. And then you were set to come home the following August.
Yeah.
Or something, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Be October, my dad visits. That next August, Denver's set to come home. And then February in between.
Yeah. Was when he passed away.
He passed away. And how, I don't even know this story. How did you find out?
I thought I was getting sent home.
So did someone come to you and say?
No, we were in the middle of a busy intersection in Brazil.
Okay.
And I was with Elder Johnson. He was such a cool dude. 6'4" from Michigan. We were always playing basketball with people. But anyway, he was an awesome missionary. A lot better than me. He was like, no sleeping in. I'm like, okay, 15 minutes now. But really good guy. And we're having a really good transfer. And we get this random call from the president.
The mission president?
Yeah. And like, you don't get calls from him unless you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And so he calls us and he's like, Johnson, are you with Elder Lane? He's like, yeah, he's right here. And then he's like, give the phone to him. So he's like, Elder Lane, where are you at? I'm like, I wish I could explain this. I'm like on 16 different intersections,
Yeah.
And so he's like, just stay where you are. I'm going to come get you. And I look at Elder Johnson, I'm like, I'm going home, dude.
Were you freaking out?
Like, what the frick did I do? I had no idea. The transfer previous, there was a night where we all went to a gaming, like internet cafes are huge there.
Yeah.
And one of the guys we baptized owned one.
Okay.
And so he had all 6 of us there and we're all playing games. And I'm like, could that get me sent home? Is that what it is? And so I'm thinking, I'm like, I'm going to run into these other 5 missionaries and hope we're all on the same page. That was like free internet hours. Come on. We have no money. And so anyway, he goes through and he's like, Johnson, I'm talking to you first. And
you're like, crap, I'm in trouble.
I'm like, oh, she's in trouble, not me,
Yeah.
So he comes out crying and I'm like, what the frick? So I go in there and he just like, Elder Lane, your dad passed away. And I'm like, what?
He just said it that fast?
Yeah. And then he's like, your mom's on the phone. So that's cool. I'm good.
And then what?
Why'd I sign up for this damn thing? This is embarrassing. How do people watch this?
Well, no one right now.
Yeah.
This is just, we're recording.
So yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
And then the coolest thing was, well, it was obviously Mom wanted me to come home.
Because you had 4 or 5 months left. You had the option to come home. And I don't know of a person who would not have come home during that, because your dad's funeral was coming up.
Yeah.
And what was that like in making that decision?
It was simple for me. I was like, nah, I'm staying.
Yeah.
He'll kick my butt if I come home early. That's what I thought.
Well, it was the coolest thing, because Denver, he stayed on his mission, and my dad's funeral. So my dad died February 18th, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And his funeral was on Chris's birthday, March 2nd.
Really?
So I'll never forget his funeral day, because and Chris actually loved it. Chris is like, what an honor.
Yeah, such a good guy.
I know. And I was pregnant with Cash at the time. And the funeral, I don't even like to call it a funeral, because it was, gosh, I'll cry. Shoot. it was actually like a really cool celebration of life. Like I'd never been to a funeral like Dad's. Never. Like, and you know, it's like those Mormon churches. I don't know if you've ever been in them, but they like, it's like they have bottomless sitting space.
So there's just
Like,
tons
they just
of-
keep opening up these
You
overflows,
stand
right?
up there and there's like 600 people.
They're like, oh, we filled up that room. Let's open up another door.
Yeah.
And then there's another. Oh, we filled up that. Let's open up another. And there was every overflow for that chapel was open, and it was jam packed, and it was like standing room only, which was such a huge testament to how many lives Dad impacted, how many people thought so highly of him. And I remember, I had to speak, you know, and I don't remember a damn thing I said. It was such a blur. The only thing I really remember, I don't even know who else spoke. I don't know if Gmo spoke. I don't know if Mom spoke. I have no idea.
Crazy.
The only thing I remember, was you. They Skyped. At the time it was Skype. Everything
I was the
Skype.
first one to do it.
They Skyped Denver in during my dad's funeral, and you got to say a couple things.
I blacked out during it. I don't remember what I said either. No.
Isn't that crazy?
I want to the other day I was thinking, I'm like, I wonder if I could find that video somewhere. I wonder
I bet we could.
because I don't even remember what I said, but I remember coming home and everyone was like, great talk. And I'm like, I don't remember if it was like 30 seconds or like 5 minutes. I have no idea.
I don't remember what you said, but I remember you saying that you, as much as you wanted to come home to be with the family, you knew that making the choice you were making was about what Dad would want. And you said you knew Dad really wanted you to go and finish a mission. Yeah. And so I remember that. And it was like, I don't think there was a dry eye in the place, because you, I think of maybe all the kids had the closest relationship with Dad.
I was close, yeah. But
and to lose your dad, like when you're away, but like how cool that it was like when you were away doing something awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was definitely tough. I remember thinking like, oh, I'm doing the hard way. Yeah. But I have a good friend that just lost his dad. Mm. This is the dumbest podcast ever. I would get so much shit from Darren and Gmo.
They don't watch my stuff. My two other brothers do not watch my stuff. So no, they don't. You're not going to get any shit from them.
One of my really good buddies just lost his dad. And seeing what he's going through,
yeah,
I'm like, oh my gosh. I took the easy way out.
Yeah.
You know?
Because, do you mean because he's here in the middle of it,
taking care of it? Like, there's so much crap that, like what Jude and Pop are going through, what Mom and Todd are going through right now. There's just so much to go through and figure out everything.
Yeah.
Like
when Dad died, I know Darren and Mom and Gmo went through all of it. I didn't go through anything either. I got shielded from it.
There was a lot of crap that, I mean, it had to have been equally as bad as what Mom and Todd are going through, if not worse, because it was a really bad time in the market, and there was a lot of stress is ultimately what killed him. And Dad, financially, it was like letting down Mom to sell the house, or letting down us to sell the house here.
Yeah.
You know, he had so many like promises. He just didn't want to, like, that was what caused the stress, I think.
I agree. Like,
that's what does it for me. And you, we were just talking about before this, how much we have going on, and it just gets overwhelming.
I'd like such a good thing to talk about. Yeah. I've thought, I mean, for years, and I still go back to it. Like, I have so many times where I replay my last interactions with Dad.
Me too.
You know?
Yeah.
And mine, like the very last interaction was Maddox's birthday was February 11th. We had a party at Gmo and Kristen's. I don't know why, but it was at Gmo and Kristen's house, and Dad was there. Maybe it was a Valentine thing, and we ended up celebrating Maddox's birthday at the same time. And Dad he doted on and loved his grandkids so much. I mean, Maddox and Marley were spoiled rotten. by my dad. But I remember him helping me carry Marley's car seat out to the car, like her carrier out to the car. And I know maybe it was a car seat. I don't even know. But he's carrying it out to the car and he had his beanie on. Remember? I don't know if you do because you were gone.
I was gone. Dad
was wearing beanies a lot for the last couple weeks because he had an ear infection. He couldn't keep the cotton. The ear infection wouldn't go away. And so all I remember is him and his beanie. We were talking about his ear infection. He was telling me it wouldn't go away. And I could tell, though, there was a lot on his mind. And he was trying so hard to be present with me. But then hearing the story from Mom about how that the day before he died, just the weeks, just how stressed he was with everything. Like to kind of fill you guys in on what Denver was saying, my dad, he had done a lot. I mean, he had a beautiful home in Mesa, Arizona that he had custom built. My dad was a builder and a land developer. So we would move every 2 years growing up, every 2 years. Because after 2 years, you could sell your house and you don't pay any taxes up to $250,000 gain. And so we would move every 2 years. My dad also had bought a home on the beach in Newport, cash. And he that was back when I was in high school or right after high school. They tore it down, they rebuilt it. And it was this beautiful home. I used to walk by it all the time now. And it's actually the home he died in. So they were there. And my dad had a lot of businesses going on at the time. Like he was 3 years clean at that point. And he had a ton of business happening, a lot of big land deals, a lot of things. And the market, like Denver had said, had made a turn and it was making a lot of the things very difficult. And my dad never wanted to make Mom feel worried or stressed.
Yeah.
And Mom
or
said,
any of us. I mean, even
none of us.
Yeah.
We were shielded. Like while we're telling the story, let me just say one of my favorite things. And I want, if you think of anything too, say it. I am so grateful that even when Dad and Mom did not have money, because there were points where they didn't. Yeah. I never knew. Dad never made us feel like we weren't going to be okay.
Yeah.
And as a result, I believe I have a really healthy relationship with money meaning like whether I have it or don't, Dad used to say, you're going to make a lot and you're going to lose a lot and you're going to rise up to the top and then you're going to fall. And he gave us such great expectations. I never felt like money had to be there.
Yeah.
It was like where I have friends and people who I've had in my life whose parents would, say, we can't afford. There was constantly this talk where now that I can't afford is programmed into somebody's head.
Yeah.
So I am so grateful. But yeah, he shielded everyone. And even when things were hard that day, I remember Mom said that he had talked to her and said, hey, there's a lot going on. There's this and that. I'm really stressed. And Mom feels bad now because she had said, but she meant it in the best way. She said, hon, you're going to figure it out. You figure everything out. I'm not even worried. I love you. Like it was that. Yeah. And Mom is like, I hope I didn't put more stress on him. And of course that wasn't, but.
No, there's a lot more going on.
But I think Dad did teach us. He didn't emphasize money.
It was never about the money. That's what he always said. Because I used to always be like, hey, it's so funny. Back like, I don't know, even 10 years ago or when I was in high school, everyone just wanted a 6-figure job. Everyone just wanted, if you want 6 figures, you got to be a doctor, an attorney. And so I remember like talking to him about that. And I remember all he said was, don't do anything for the money. Do what you love. And if you're the best at it, he's like, I don't care if you're an artist.
Or you're a garbage man.
Or a garbage man. Yes. If you're the best at it, you'll make the most money in that industry. Yeah. And I've wanted to be everything that time. I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. I wanted to go long-term in the military. But that's back to the mission thing. I think that's why I stayed and why he wanted me to, because it was the first thing I really finished in life. I half-assed it through football. Half-assed it through school. I was, that was the first thing I finished. And that was like in my life, a marker of I can do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know how I became to be a realtor because I did not love being a realtor and I kind of got thrown into it. But I've always thought about it, and I ended up loving new home sales, and like not necessarily a realtor. I guess you are a realtor, but just the new home sales. And that was kind of when I first started feeling like success. And I really remember thinking to myself, it's because I freaking love doing it.
Yeah.
I was with Tyler Elliott. You remember Tyler? And Alex Cabello and all them.
Yeah.
And it was just so fun throwing keys to each other, acting like someone's about to buy this property, but really they're not. And I fell in love with that and everything at the DR Horton area. And that was like, for me, I'm like, oh, I can afford to have groceries and have an actual home, you know?
Yes.
But I always think about that. I don't care what you do, as long as you love it.
Yeah.
You're the best at it, you'll make the most money.
It sounds like, because I mean, safe to say, you really have such an optimistic view of life. So do I. I actually think all 4 of us kids do. I don't know what mom and dad did, but they somehow made 4 kids who mostly have an optimistic view of life. Yeah. And we all have really tight relationships with our kids. I mean, there's so many things that I credit dad for, but I think it sounds like you landed in realty, real estate. And and you found a way to love it is what you did. Yeah. And then you made enough money to where you could do something that you're doing now that I think you do love, and was inspired by dad. You have to talk about that.
You know what's really crazy? I won't go too far into it because I don't want to get all choked up. But what's kind of crazy is dad and we always joked about having a wellness center. So when I still remember with Darren, I got home off a mission and we were floating in the pool. Yeah. And I remember we were talking like, dude, if we can just make 10 grand a month forever, we'll retire. That's all we need. And back then it was a lot. It was 13 years ago or whatever. Yeah. And it's just so funny. We were talking about that. And I still remember telling him that my dream, I still wanted to be a dermatologist. This is before I went to real estate school. I wanted to be a dermatologist, and I wanted to have the lasers that dad used to take mom to get at
her face.
Yeah, the facial lasers. I wanted to do the testosterone. My goal in life was like to be able to afford testosterone, IVs, and massages every week. That was like my goal.
Let me just say this real quick. So these were all of his goals. And he kind of mentioned it at the beginning, but I'm just going to say, I'm going to piece the story together, bring it all together. My mom and dad were truly like, when they were 40, so this was 22 years ago, they were 40, you guys. My parents remember it was Dr. Hammer. They had an anti-aging doctor. And I'm like, no one knew what anti-aging is, but they're like, yeah, when you hit 40, your hormone levels shift. And so what we're doing is natural hormone replacement therapy. No one knew what this was. And my parents were already in it because they knew that they wanted to feel good. And now hormone replacement therapy it's everywhere.
We do it for $150 a month. Back then, the cheapest you can find was like $1,500 a month.
I remember. I feel like they paid thousands a month because that doctor came to the house too.
And he was just giving me B12 shots as a 17-year-old. Really cool guy.
But and like shots are new to a lot of people now, but like back then they were doing that. And I remember my dad and mom, you guys. So my dad was hugely into fitness. I always would say that mom was like Barbie and dad was like Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
The big bald head, big muscles. And they were always in the gym together. My dad loved it. Denver said at the beginning how my dad would brag about protein. He would always, I remember those, it was like the big 100, the brownies,
yes, the brownies.
RX, whatever it was. He would eat those. He would eat like 2 at a time. And now with the education we have, we could have slowed down on the protein.
That wasn't that good, Dad. He was shot in the casein protein shots. So like that's the stuff that causes cancer now. But I would wake up at like 9 o'clock on summer vacation,
so
and he'd be like, I've already had 90 grams of protein. I went to the gym. What are you doing? Like, thanks, Dad.
90 grams of protein and went to the gym. I will never forget. Dad and mom would never see the fact that you got to sleep until 9 a.m. Oh, you were spoiled.
I was spoiled. I know.
Like if we slept until 7 a.m., we were in trouble.
Mom would still kick the door open, turn on the lights.
Get up. God. Take our blanket, throw our blanket off of us. Oh my gosh.
It's going to be here in 15 minutes. Take your sheets off. Like,
that's exactly what
come on.
Why do you ever come at 7:30 a.m.?
Yeah.
So Luana was the sweet woman who would clean our house once a week when we grew up.
She was the best. She got me in trouble a couple times. Some stuff she found. I don't want to talk about
my
on here.
parents. Okay, my mom and dad, when Denver was in high school, they were,
They're in
three
Newport
out
all
of four
summer.
kids. 3 out of 4 kids had left the house. Darren was on a mission, I think, right?
Yeah.
And Denver was the one at home. And so they actually tried bringing Denver. Oh, this is a funny story. They tried bringing Denver to Newport. Then they shipped him home for football.
Yeah.
And they thought Denver was going to football practice every day. What were you really doing?
I was going to a friend's house that lived across the street every morning during 2-a-days and watching VH1 music videos with him. And then he was gone in the afternoon. So the afternoon one, I would hide in Shane's truck. Like, I'm not doing 2-a-days. I don't want to freaking be here.
And so did Dad find out?
I think eventually I told him.
But they were so soft on you compared to us.
I don't remember if they knew. He wasn't too soft on me. There's some stories where I talked back to it was things like talking back to mom would get me beat.
Yeah.
Or joking around about a joke with girls would get me beat. It was never like joking about drinking or anything like that. It was basically disrespecting girls or
disrespecting women. Yeah.
But,
and back then, though, physical punishment was very widely accepted. Not so much now.
It would be if you were still here. He would still. And I'm grateful for it. It did make me tougher because I was a little baby. I was spoiled. It took me going on a mission to actually kind of grow up.
Well, okay. So that leads to kind of the next thing. You said it took you going on a mission to kind of grow up. Do you feel like it was, and maybe it was the culmination of both, but since Dad passed, I personally can see a major dynamic shift, bad, like hard and good for our entire family and all the kids. Do you feel like it was the mission that made you grow up, or do you feel like it was Dad dying that made you grow up?
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think mainly the dad dying just sucks.
Yeah.
And the one thing I've learned from that is there's so many blessings that come from something so awful.
Isn't that true?
You know what I mean? Like I feel like I have a better relationship with him now.
Yeah.
And I feel like even though I don't go to church every week, I still feel like I was baptized on the mission and I'm not leaving the church.
Yeah.
My thoughts and beliefs won't ever change. But him making me go on that, he knew. And he used to always say, I don't care what reason it is. Because people say, don't go on a mission for the wrong reasons, right? Yeah. And Dad used to always say, any reason's the right reason.
I love it. See, again, your dad was a rule breaker. You're right. Because everyone in the church would say, go because you know the church is true.
Yeah.
Where most people don't know any church is true. We're believing it is. And Dad was very realistic about that. And he would say, you don't know what you don't know.
He paid for so many kids' missions.
He did.
And he wasn't even the most religious guy. He was spiritual. Yeah. But it's like the best thing that could have happened. If I had boys, I mean, I'm not going to force my girls to go, but I would force the boys to at least go on a mission or military. Because military, you grow up in a different way. And I've thought about, I probably had some really cool sleeves if I would have went missionary.
Like Scott. Scott, 22 years in the military.
I would
got some pretty cool sleeves.
I wonder what direction I would have gone though. If I would have taken the military route.
Yeah.
They both would have been a win-win and Dad knew that.
Yeah, you're right. Like Dad knew that, boys, when they graduate, and I do think it's one of the best things the church has is, there's a lot of great, but the family emphasis is awesome. Yeah. And I'm so glad Dad and Mom raised us that way because family was so important. But yeah, it's like a boy after 18, there's so many different ways a boy can get in trouble. And sometimes when you're getting in trouble, like that age, it's hard to correct if you go too far down. And so Dad was very adamant about you guys going on missions, number one, to serve and figure out how to be selfless because you only knew selfish and you didn't even understand that. And then number two, to grow up, like learn how to communicate with people, sell religion, which is truly one of the hardest things to sell, You have
to understand, you have to care for the person.
Yeah.
And I learned how to sell on the mission because I learned it's not about me, it's about you. Like if
you learned how to care on the mission.
Yeah. If you really need God in your life, then I'm going to help you. Whether it's my church, your church, any church, let's take the next step. it's like that with anything. And I learned how to convert that to new home sales, and that was a huge blessing. But also like being able to figure out how I'm going to live off of $60 every 2 weeks for 2 years, not being able to call mom and dad. The mission rules now are way different. They're way more lax than when I was there.
Well, I hope it's not too lax, because Maddox is about to go and he needs everything you're talking about. I'm like learning how to live on $62 a week.
Yeah, well,
that's like a meal for him. Secondarily, learning that he can't call mom and dad. Did you hear what happened at his graduation?
No.
So we're at his graduation early, and it's like literally 30 minutes before graduation's supposed to start. I get a call from him freaking out because he didn't turn in his Chromebook. Mom, my Chromebook, which is his computer, it didn't get turned in. I had been sending him texts for 2 weeks about turning in his Chromebook. His best friend had said, I told him to turn it in this morning. Mom, can you run home? Get my Chromebook. They won't let me graduate. They won't let me walk if I don't return it. So we race home to get his Chromebook. He's like, yeah, just there's a couple stickers on it. Take it off. They're plastered on. The stickers were on for a year. So I'm like, dissolve it, the dissolve it stuff. Doing dissolve it on the case of the Chromebook to get it off. And I'm like, I finally get it to him right before graduation. So he's fine.
Oh, gosh.
But I'm like, what is this kid going to do on a mission when mom can't save him?
It'll take 6 months, and it's like Darren used to say.
Darren's our brother.
Yeah, he's a big reason why I got through the mission too, because he would write me and stuff, but he was always like, you're not coming home unless you're in a body bag. I'm like, okay, I understand.
Got it.
And I'm glad, because Dad died. And I'm like, Darren said this, Dad said this, I'm stuck out here,
Yeah.
But you just learn not to quit. And then once you hit the end, you're like,
I did it.
Holy cow. 2 years gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny, back to the pool story with Darren, we were talking about it. And I'm like, Darren's like, it's going to take you 10 years to get, because you have dermatologist has like 4 years of school, which I had nothing at that point. Then you have medical school, then you have your residency. Yeah. That's like 11 years. I'm like, what the freak?
To like cut moles out of people. I don't want to do that.
Well, and I still wanted to, but I was like, how am I going to do it? We didn't really, get anything when Dad died. Financially.
We did not.
I got access to my
college account
because I was 19.
Yeah.
So I used that to put it as down payment on the house, which wasn't that much. It was an $80,000 condo. But anyway, looking back, if I would have gone this is crazy. If I would have gone the schooling route, it would have taken me the same amount of years to get to the spot I am today.
Yeah.
I did the exact same thing in the realtor route.
Wow.
That's it. It would have been the exact same. I was telling Tim, like, I could have gone 11 years to be to this spot, or I could have gone 11 years this direction. I think that was Dad's hand, because I do love real estate. Yeah. And I love working with Darren and helping mom sell homes. And, like, I love all that. But it's just crazy. It worked out. I was lucky enough to meet Chris. Yeah. Because I got referred to him.
Chris, not Chris Powell.
Chris Morris.
Chris Morris, his business partner.
At New Level. Yeah,
so Denver and Chris started a med spa together. So just now they have a med spa. Was that 2 years ago?
We're on it, 2.5 years.
2.5 years ago.
So, but it's crazy to me that it would have been the exact same amount of time. And the route I took was even better because I wasn't in school.
And now he's doing laser, and you have all the lasers,
all the things I wanted to,
hormone replacement therapy.
That's what's crazy.
All sorts of, you're helping people lose weight. Like, it's really awesome to see what you're doing. All stuff that Dad, if Dad was alive,
he would be geeking out on it. Even Gmo's the same way. Darren's the same. We're all
Gmo and Darren are brothers.
We're all the same on just trying to be healthy.
Yeah. And trying to, one of the things I remember about Dad is he always looked good. Let me just say that. He always looked fit and strong, and he was well put together. So was my mom. But my dad would say, yeah, of course I do this for me because I want to feel good and I want to look good. He said, but I really do it for mom. Yeah. Because I want to look good for mom. After they were high school sweethearts. So they met at like 15 and 16. And until the day he died, he still cared to show up his best for mom, like to show mom that he loved her. Like, hey, I want to look good for you because you deserve the best. So I'm going to be the best. I'm going to tell, Scott at one point, Scott's the guy that I'm dating.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I'm kidding.
During one of our we've had many hard times in 10 months. I think a lot of relationships do. Relationships are like mirrors and they hold up and show you shit that you haven't healed. And so there's a lot that I'm realizing I haven't healed. And I can be hard to work with sometimes. But on his mirror at one point, he said that he had these letters, SDYBV, exclamation point. There was a post-it for each letter, SDYBV, exclamation point. And it was after something difficult that he and I had gone through. And I asked, I said, what is this? And he's like, you can try and figure it out, but I'm not going to tell you. He said, I'm going to see if it works. I need that reminder every day because he uses Post-its all the time for himself, all the time. SDYBV. And so I would joke around. I would just try and figure out what it said. And not all my guesses were wrong, but finally, 2 weeks later, I ended up figuring it out. It was, she deserves your best version.
Oh, cool.
And so he said, and that was every day. He said, I wanted the reminder in the mirror of the fact that you, Heidi, are a queen and you deserve my absolute best version. So I need to show up as my best for you. And when I saw that and realized what it was, it reminded me of how dad lived his life for mom.
Yeah, totally.
Knowing that mom deserved his best version and mom lived the same way, knowing that dad deserved her best version,
Yeah.
Okay. What else? Tell me. I mean, I have a lot of things. Tell me and tell everyone listening.
Okay.
How dad was with mom. Because this is just my favorite thing.
He was like a 18-year-old on his first date every time. I'd walk into the room like, why are they laying on the ground?
Why are they laying on the ground?
Like, close your door. All the time though, always, he never, even in Brazil, like he was such a big dude.
Yeah.
And in Brazil, mom had her stinking ring and people are like,
it was a big rock.
Like, take off all your jewelry when you go there. And dad's like, no, she'll be fine. And I kid you not, she's walking around with all of her jewelry and dad just has his massive size 12 hand in her back pocket. And he's like, no one's going to touch me. And he got around Brazil fine.
It's true. Dad was scary. Like he was definitely scary looking and he was just a mushy teddy bear on the inside, especially with mom.
Yeah. But he always had his hand in her back pocket, always kissing her in front of us.
I know. That was really
all the good
sweet
stuff. Yeah.
That's, I mean, you guys, and I am not kidding you guys. Like this was forever. This was there was never a time where I do not remember my mom and dad being this way until he died. Like he had a spot. We had a big sectional couch in the Mesa house and dad had his spot. It was a leather couch and dad was bald. So my dad was bald. He shaved his head. I shaved it when I was 16.
It's shaved. I'm not bald.
I know. He was balding. Okay. But let's act like he could still grow hair. He couldn't. But remember his spot on the leather sectional, there was a big grease spot from his head. Do you remember that?
No.
Because he would just lay and watch his shows. But like, I remember him laying there and he'd always try and get mom because mom was like me, just
all
busy, always moving, cleaning the kitchen, doing her thing. Oh, Grant, I can't. And he'd get her to come over. He'd pull her onto the couch and he was always in the cutest way. This is not a weird way. He was always grabbing her butt, letting her know how beautiful she was, telling her how much he loved her. Like my mom was telling me some stories about dad and like the trips they would take were always his idea. He would always plan every bit of it. He would always find ways inside of those trips to make her feel like a queen. I have a friend, Kayla.
Yeah.
Do you remember? You know Kayla? Yeah. She was a Suns dancer. And my parents had front row seats at the Suns game. Courtside seats. That's what it was. Courtside, right?
Courtside.
I don't remember exactly where it was, but they had courtside seats. Went to almost every game. Everyone knew who they were because my mom was just beautiful. My dad was big and they were so nice to everyone. And the dancers would dance right in front of them. And Kayla said, your dad. They didn't even know each other, but this is years later. This is like 5 years ago. She said, your dad and mom were so cute together. She said they were the topic of conversation for all of us dancers. And we never understood how your dad never once ever looked at any of us. She said every other man who was there with their wives, every man was oogling over us dancing. And your dad, when we would dance, he would just turn and talk to your mom, would never make eye contact, would never look. Because he always wanted my mom to feel like she was his number one. Yeah. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, that's rare.
I remember all those things too.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's dad.
He was. Okay, hold on. Let me, I didn't even ask any of my questions. Let me see.
All right.
Okay, we kind of went through that. Okay. In 3 words, how would you describe dad's personality?
Big, strong, funny.
Big, strong, funny. Okay.
Loving.
Yeah. So we can add 4. Big, strong, funny, loving.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say intense. He was very intense.
He was super intense.
In everything, whether we were in trouble or he was in business or he was loving my mom or whatever. Yeah. He was intense.
Very.
He was so freaking savvy. So savvy in life. Like, I knew my dad could figure out any situation, right?
Yeah.
He was definitely protective.
Very.
You remember the Trey Warner story where he went, a boy had kissed me in 7th grade. And like, I had my eyes closed. It was like a joke, or like a game. He tricked me into kissing him. And my dad went and found Trey Warner that night at a party, an 8th grade boy, and basically said, if you ever touch my daughter again, I will have some words with you.
Awesome.
I don't know.
I would do the same for Abby.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, dad, and I'm going to say larger than life. He was. Yeah. Dad was he was a lot of good things. Okay. How did dad show you he loved you?
Oh man. Every time he beat me, he actually would give it like 15 minutes and he'd come over, sit down and say, I love you, right? I'd say, yeah. He's like, do you understand why
you're
I
in
just
trouble?
got mad? Why you're in trouble? I'm like, I do. But it's funny. I do the same thing for my girls now. If I spank them or if I yell at them, put them in timeout, I have to go back and let them know I love them. Yeah. But dad did that all the time. I was not a good kid. I got in trouble a lot, even though I was spoiled. He would always come back and tell me that.
Isn't that crazy? You got in trouble a lot. I didn't. I literally did not make a mistake as a child. Nothing. But maybe sometimes I breathed the wrong way. Gmo and I were the oldest, and Gmo and I, we were all talking. He and I definitely were raised differently than you and Darren. I think dad was a lot harder on us, and we were very good kids. And then you and Darren were like, I'm going to do whatever I want. We got away with a lot.
And what's crazy is he would always come back and say, I love you or whatever. Yeah. But the things that he would get mad, like the first time I drank a beer, it was at yours and Derek's wedding.
Oh.
Yeah. I won't say with
marriage
who,
number 1.
But Papa and Jude drank beer and wine, and so they had their own little ice chest.
Yeah.
And it's the grossest thing ever. We got a hand of on a Budweiser. The grossest thing ever. And we're like, let's go drink it behind.
I want to know this after we end this podcast. You have to tell me what it was with.
Like, let's go drink it behind the dumpster because the house was getting built next door. So I went back and I remember just gagging it down. Like, this is disgusting. We shared a Budweiser. And the next day I felt so bad. I remember telling dad and I was like, he's going to beat me so bad. And he was so cool with it.
Oh,
yeah. He's like, I'm proud of you for telling me. He's like, you're fine. And he explained, like, when you do the right thing like you did, it's not a sin, like you're worried about it.
Yeah, dad had so many lessons that serve us now. Okay, what things do you do today because of dad? And I'm going to start by saying something.
Okay.
Because it's off of what you just said. How I think a lot of people watching social media have a hard time differentiating between parents who actually have good relationships with their kids and parents who don't. Because on social, you can make it appear however you want it to look, right? My relationship with my kids, I'm going to say they are the best kids in the world, the best. And I feel like I have the best relationship with my kids. And also, I think you would say the same about your kids. I think Darren would say the same about his. And I think Gmo, my brother, would say the same about his kids. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, the reason family is so important, the reason why, even with this podcast, I mean, I just was talking to you, I might take a 2-month pause. And the world of people around me are like, oh, that's the worst idea to take a pause for a podcast. But the reality is, what would Dad do? Dad would say, what's more important?
Yeah.
Your kids or how you show up in the world? And to me, what is the most important are my kids. And if that means that I got to let a podcast go and I might lose listeners, that's okay, right? What's meant for me, like and Dad used to say, when you're on your deathbed, like, you're not going to care about all the work that you did. You're actually going to care about how your relationships are with those you love the most. Yeah. And family was so important to Dad. So important. The most important. Also making a good living. But like, Dad never did anything at the risk of losing his family, ever. He always made us feel number one. And I know that has played out in my life big time.
Yeah.
Big time. My kids family's the most important thing to me.
I mean, he taught us that from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. You know, family, if we weren't at church, we were doing a family thing, you know?
Yes.
And he would always say, the reason I love the church is because it makes you realize the family is the most important. But a lot of things I do, like I love being a girl dad. I could only imagine like how he would have been with our girls and everything, but
I know
it's the same. I just love the girls, you know, and a lot of the things I do with Taylor, where I try and surprise her, and I try
Taylor's
and do
his wife.
Yes, the best wife ever.
See how good he is.
Everything I try and do. I mean, I learned all the little tricks from him.
I know
on how to surprise her, how to make her feel good. The same thing with the girls.
Yeah.
The trick I have with the girls now is I always laugh. Our kids are even more spoiled than I was. Honestly, the other day, Ivy went to a friend's house and while she was there, the friend's mom had groceries delivered to the door. Yeah. So Ivy's like, no way, your groceries come to the front door? We have to go get our groceries. Really? Yeah. And she's like, you little fool, you have no idea how good you have it.
We live in poverty. Yeah. We got to go get our groceries.
We got to go get them.
That is so funny.
But yeah, all the little things from being a dad and from Dad parenting me, he did a good job of making me realize that even though you have the money, it wasn't spent on anything besides, I mean, honestly, on nothing. He really only spent it on our family trips.
Yeah.
Or putting it back into the company, you know? But for the longest time, he drove that Tahoe. And I still remember.
Yes, I remember
people thinking it's so cool. Like, he drives a stinking old 2002 Tahoe, you know?
Yes.
But there's so many little things that I take from him.
Yeah. I think another thing that and it's kind of in a flip way. Let me just say, Dad and Mom had the best relationship. They never fought in front of us. Never. And so maybe this is the way it impacted me negatively now that I'm thinking about it as I'm saying it. But the reality is they had such a good example for what a relationship should be that, interestingly, you boys all figured it out. Like, you boys were able to find a woman, have a family, and carry on the relationship that you saw Mom and Dad have. I think what happened with me, let's turn this into therapy for me. Why has Heidi been married so many times? Still can't figure it out. I think truly what happened is I assumed that every man was like Dad. Yeah. Because that's all I knew. I thought every relationship, that's what a relationship is. And so I didn't even understand that fighting could happen. I didn't understand that you could be with someone who's not a match. I didn't understand that communication, like, not every man will communicate with me. I didn't understand any of it, none of it. And so getting into my first marriage was such a shock to me because I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
This isn't what I saw at home. And I'm so confused. And so then I think I kind of went on a string of like, okay, well, that one was maybe, just not right. Oh, this one's got to be it. Oh, wait, hold on. This one's not it. Oh, this one must be it. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, no, damn it. Like none of them are it. And mom, I mean, I'm in a good relationship now, but mom and dad, they had something so rare and so unique. And they had so many 20 something years before they had hardship, but 20 something years before dad started struggling with addiction. And so having all of that life behind them and that love and that like truly concrete foundation made it possible for them to get through what they did. And then to see dad blossom and become even better after was just, as weird as it sounds, the best way for him to go out, you know?
Yeah, they grew up together.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so we just talked a lot about dad.
Yes.
The best dad, I mean, the best dad I've ever had. The only dad I've ever had. What is the last thing? Do you want to give like one final, if you have to, and you can stop and think for a sec, like if you had to say what the absolute greatest lesson is that dad taught you that you think if you shared with the world, it could help them too, what would it be?
There's so many. It would be if you want a lesson in being truthful or what you want to do for work or how to, there's just so many. Mm-hmm. The one I always gravitate towards like his sayings. Mm-hmm. Like one time I left $100 bill out. No, what happened? I feel like someone stole $100 bill. Yeah. And he said, well, where'd you leave it? And I'm like, it was on my counter. He's like, that's your fault. Yeah. He's like, have you never heard the term keep an honest man honest? I'm like, no, what's that? He said, if you want to keep an honest man honest, don't tempt him. And another thing he always said was, I know you're going to go to this party and I know you're not going to drink, but I want to know that you're going to keep yourself out of the position that will make you want to drink. It's like, I used to say, back in church phrase, he'd always say things like, the prophet's not the best because he doesn't do certain things. He's the best because he knows how to keep himself out of certain situations. Yeah,
that's really good because I remember dad too. I never understood what dad meant. I was actually a really good girl. I didn't kiss anyone until I was almost 16. I was so clean. And dad would always, I couldn't really understand what he was saying, but I remember I had this t-shirt. It's so ridiculous. I'm going to tell you, I got it at Goodwill and it said across the front, milk. And I did not understand. I just thought, oh, it was a baby blue shirt and it had white writing. I liked the color on me. I was so, Denver, I was so naive.
Airheaded?
I was airheaded. I was naive. How I pulled good grades, I don't even know, but I did. I got straight A's. But then I would wear that shirt with these overalls. And and dad did not like it because if with overalls, sometimes if you can see through the back, and dad was very particular about me being modest and dressing a certain way. And I remember one lecture in particular, like he had said that, he said, Heidi, you don't understand. He said, when you're doing that, he said, you are putting yourself in a situation with guys where they are going to make an advance on you that's going to be hard for you to resist because you're going to feel bad or whatever it was. Yeah. And I didn't really understand what he was saying at the time. And sure enough, I landed myself in so many situations where I tempted myself, right? I landed myself in a situation that I couldn't resist, or a situation that was going to have someone else not be able to resist. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to say no. So dad, there was a lot of truth to dad saying, stay out of the situation to begin with.
And I've learned that even when me and Taylor, if she goes on a girls' night, I'm naturally protective. And it's like, I don't care who you're going with. I care that you're going to keep yourself out of the wrong spot or whatever. But that was not so recent, more like when we first got married, you're trying to learn how to live with someone and do your own thing or whatever. Yeah. But probably the most beneficial would be blood is thicker than water. How many times do you say that growing up?
Yep.
It
He
was
always,
all the time.
That's your
Family
brother.
comes first.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Like I remember fights we get in. Well, it's family, so you got to figure it out. And I know there's a lot of people these days that are like, oh, family is, friends, and friends are family. I get that. But like also, I don't think there will ever be a day where any of us siblings or my mom or any of our family members will ever let ourselves get to a position where we can't work it out ever.
Never.
And that's a dad thing.
I feel like I've gotten in a argument or fight with everyone.
I don't know if you have with me. Have you and I ever?
Probably not. I think you kicked my ass when we were younger.
Probably.
But like, even if me and Darren are mad at each other at work, it's like 3 hours later. Hey, what are you guys doing tonight?
Don't you love that?
Oh, and that's the coolest thing. And it really is the coolest thing.
I'm the same way.
And it makes us all better friends. Even with my friends, if we get an argument, or if me and Taylor do, I feel like it's not that hard for me. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, you guys should do this, I do that. It's just not hard for me to go say sorry.
Denver, I'm the same way.
Not hard at all.
And to actually forget about it. Like to me, Dad was really good at keeping us present. Something about the way he raised us. It's like what happened. I do not understand. I do not get how people can hold grudges. I don't get it.
So unhealthy.
It's unhealthy and it's not fun. Like what? And I don't have the mental capacity to hold or remember what happened. I might remember that I was upset. I cannot remember why I was upset. And I love that. And I feel like that was such a dad. It was like we got over stuff and he got over stuff so quickly. And it all kind of goes back to the blood is thicker than water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta learn to get over it.
Yeah. Okay. So Dad's been gone for 13 years. And I'm going to say, interestingly, the thing that I've learned the most from Dad, I'm going to answer this in a different way than I even asked it. So I asked you for a specific lesson. I'm going to say I learned the most from Dad after he died.
It's probably true.
Weirdest thing. Like Gmo and I were talking when our grandpa died a month ago. Actually, it was a few weeks, but by the time this comes out, it's a month. And Gmo and I were talking about, I don't know if it was then or somewhere around then, that Dad was so good at being a dad. He was so good. Like he really wanted the best for us and wanted to help us through every situation. And he did. And, and taught us lessons along the way, like so many lessons along the way. He wanted to give us a fish and then teach us how to fish. And sometimes if he taught us how to fish enough, he's like, I'm not giving you another damn fish. You know how to fish, go do it. And I was that kid that got that a lot. Like, I've given you so many damn fish. Go figure out how to fish yourself because I've taught you over and over. And we were saying, though, how sometimes with Dad, he would want the best for us so much that then when he died, it was the hardest thing on the planet because we didn't know how to do life without him, right? And it was the best thing ever because it forced us, all four of us, and Mom, I'm going to say 5. It forced all 5 of us to figure it out on our own. You said it. We didn't get money from Dad. We didn't, it's not like we are these trust fund babies. We had to figure out life on our own. And we figured it out by tapping into who he was and what he taught us. And I will say one of the greatest compliments I got from Karen Gruninger the other day was, I could read it, but she essentially sent me a text and she said, I don't even know if you realize how much like your dad you are. And I just was like, because it's the best compliment. Best. I know.
The whole family is awesome. Another thing I was thinking about was Dad you always see, I feel like a lot of men in general are territorial and competitive.
Yes.
And I could see it in people I work with, or I can see it in friends that work with people where they, even though it's their brother or it's their son, they still want the upper edge. Mm-hmm. Dad always wanted us to all be more successful than him.
I know.
That was it's funny because that's how, not that he even trained me, but naturally I would love if Ivy was just like the next Jeff Bezos. I would,
yes.
I hope she passes me, you know, but he always wanted. I remember hearing the stories of how excited he was when you and Chris had the show.
I know.
He was geeking out, trying to help out everybody. You know?
I know. Yeah, Dad would do. We would do like an AA meeting with all the people. So Chris would be shooting the show. I had all the people in Arizona, and my dad, everyone listening, would run like a weekly AA meeting with all the participants that were in Arizona with me. It was OA, but we would run it the same way as Dad's AA meetings.
That's cool.
It was so cool. I mean, he never lived to see the first episode go live. Can you imagine how proud he would have been? Yeah, I know.
And then when Gmo got his pilot's license, he was so proud.
Oh.
Gmo was flying. Gmo was like, damn it, what I get myself into. I'm flying these guys in a Cessna everywhere.
I know, that's right. Gmo did. Oh, well, I think this is my favorite podcast episode I've done.
Good. Except for that little choked up part in the middle. You can delete that.
I thought it was great. Can we also, before we go, we have to acknowledge what a great dad you are. Because it's Father's Day today. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
You are he's such a good dad, you guys.
I'm a pushover.
Oh, no.
They can do anything they want with me. I hope they never move out.
That's
I hope they live with me forever.
Yeah, I mean, Maddox, if the mission didn't come up, he'd be well on his way.
Yeah.
Oh, well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. This was actually, Denver, thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for letting me.
This was my favorite podcast episode ever.
Good.
And happy Father's Day to everyone listening. And if you're not a father, go say happy Father's Day. Give your man a hug. Give your dad a hug. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks. Thank you.